Stranger Things, Season 5. Volume 2 is about to drop on Christmas Day, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say the amount of spoilers we already know is absolutely insane. The directors have been dropping hints about Volume 2 for months now, and when you add them up, the final 4 episodes are going to be way more intense than anything we've seen before. Will's powers are going to be absolutely critical. Let's start with the biggest reveal from Volume 1, Will Byers has powers now. But here's what most people are missing about how they actually work. Will's abilities aren't like Eleven's at all. Eleven's powers come from within her, right? She was born with that potential, and Brenner amplified it through experiments. Will's situation is completely different. When Vecna took him to the Upside Down back in 1983, he literally pumped those vine tendrils into Will and connected him to the hive mind. Think about it like this, Will's powers are basically borrowed. He's tapping into Vecna's own abilities through the hive mind connection. The Duffer Brothers confirmed that Will can only use these powers when he's close to the hive mind. It's proximity based. So if Will's nowhere near Vecna or the Upside Down, he can't access anything. But when he is close, he can literally control every single creature connected to that hive mind. The Demogorgons, the Mind Flayers, particles, all of it. He becomes a puppeteer. Here's where it gets really interesting for Volume 2. The brothers said Will's been connected to the hive mind since Season 2, he just didn't know how to weaponize it. Remember when he could sense the Mind Flayer and would freeze up? That wasn't just PTSD. He was literally seeing through the monster's eyes without realizing he could flip the script and control them instead. And there's this whole thing about Will accepting himself, the conversation with Robin about being gay and accepting who you are. That wasn't just a touching character moment. The Duffers basically said that Will's inability to accept himself was blocking him from accessing his full potential. The second he started embracing who he really is, boom, the power's unlocked. Ross Duffer said Will's been more fearful than the others throughout the show, hasn't been a leader, hasn't accepted himself, but Volume 2 is going to show us what happens when he finally does. Now think about this, Vecna completely underestimates Will. Matt Duffer confirmed that Vecna sees Will as weak, as nothing, incapable of achieving anything great. That's exactly why Vecna chose him as a vessel in the first place. He thought Will was the weakest kid, but that's going to be Vecna's biggest mistake. Will's going to use that underestimation against him, and based on what we know about Volume 2, he's going to play a massive role in the final battle. The nosebleed at the end of Episode 4 wasn't just a cool visual callback to Eleven, it shows that using these powers takes a physical toll on Will. He's not trained like Eleven was. She spent years learning how to control her abilities. Will just discovered his, which means Volume 2 is probably going to show him struggling to master them while also using them to save everyone. The Max and Holly storyline is going to be massive. Okay, this is huge. The Duffer Brothers literally called the Max and Holly storyline the new Russia storyline. For anyone who doesn't remember, the Russia storyline in Season 4 was when Hopper was trapped in a Russian prison and had to escape while being completely isolated from the main group. It was basically its own mini-movie running parallel to everything else. That's exactly what's happening with Max and Holly in Volume 2. They're trapped in Vecna's mind space, completely cut off from everyone else, and they're going to be exploring more of Vecna's memories. The brothers said they're very happy with how it integrates with the other storylines, which tells us this isn't just going to be filler. Whatever Max and Holly discover in Vecna's mind is going to directly impact the final battle. In Volume 1, we saw Max reliving some of Henry Creel's memories from the 1950s. She saw the cave, she saw things from the stage play The First Shadow, but that was just the beginning. Volume 2 is going to go way deeper into Vecna's backstory, and the Duffers confirmed that the final episode especially is going to have major overlap with the play. Here's what we know about what Max saw. There's this Oklahoma theater poster from November 6th. Yes, the same date Will disappeared. And Joyce Byers was directing a play that featured Henry Creel. This can't be a coincidence. The Duffers don't do coincidences. Whatever happened on November 6th in the 1950s is somehow connected to what happened on November 6th in 1983, and Max and Holly are going to uncover that connection. The cave is a huge part of this too. We know from the First Shadow play that young Henry Creel went into a cave in Nevada and encountered something that changed him. He was flayed by the Mind Flayer there. In Volume 1, Max sees Henry's memories of the cave and realizes he's terrified of it. Whatever happened in that cave is going to be explained in Volume 2, and it's going to reveal something fundamental about how Vecna got his powers in the first place. Now here's the scary part. Vecna has been specifically targeting younger children this season. In Volume 1, we saw him going after kids between the ages of 9 and 12, not teenagers like in Season 4. Holly Wheeler's in that exact age range, which means Vecna probably has plans for her. The Duffers said Holly's disappearance was meant to echo Will's disappearance in Season 1, bringing everything full circle. But unlike Will, Holly's trapped directly in Vecna's mind with Max. Max is still in her coma in the real world. Lucas and Robin are literally racing against time to protect her body from Demogorgons that Vecna keeps sending. But her consciousness is awakened in Vecna's mind space, and she's the only one who can guide Holly through it. The Duffers hinted at a tipping point between Max and Vecna in Volume 2. Jamie Campbell Bower, who plays Vecna, said there's a big moment coming for his character thanks to Max. My guess, Max is going to discover something in Vecna's memories that gives the group the key to defeating him, but it's going to cost her something major. Barb's body is coming back. This one's wild. Shannon Purser's character Barb is returning in Volume 2. Obviously, she's been dead since Season 1, but the Duffers confirmed her body is going to appear, most likely as part of Vecna's hive. Think about what this means. Vecna has been keeping the bodies of his victims. We saw Chrissy, Fred, Patrick, and others in Season 4 suspended in his mind space. But Barb was killed by a Demogorgon way back in Season 1, before we even knew Vecna existed. The fact that her body is in his hive suggests that Vecna's been collecting victims for way longer than we thought. But here's the deeper implication. The Duffer said this appearance suggests there could be a deeper connection between all of Vecna's victims. What if everyone who's died in the Upside Down, going all the way back to Season 1, is somehow still connected to Vecna? What if their consciousness or some part of them is trapped in his hive mind, and that's how he's been growing stronger? This could also tie into the time travel element. If Barb's body is preserved in the hive and the Upside Down is frozen in time, then maybe Volume 2 is going to show us that Vecna's been manipulating events across multiple timelines. We know the Upside Down got stuck on November 6, 1983, the day Will disappeared. Everything in that dimension stopped moving forward from that exact moment. Seeing Barb again might not just be a cameo, it might be crucial to understanding how Vecna's power works. Time travel is going to play a major role. Speaking of time, this is probably the biggest conceptual spoiler for Volume 2. The official Netflix synopsis used the phrase "time itself unraveling" to describe the final episodes. That's not just poetic language. The Duffers have been hinting at time manipulation throughout Season 5. We've already seen a version of this through Max. She's trapped in Vecna's mind prison and has been experiencing his memories. That's a form of time displacement, right? She's literally watching events from the 1950s as if she's there, but the brothers said the full extent of how time impacts the final season hasn't been revealed yet. Here's what we know for sure. The Upside Down is stuck in 1983. Everything there is frozen at the exact moment Will was taken. That's been established since Season 4. But what if that's not just a weird side effect? What if Vecna deliberately froze time in that dimension for a reason? The phrase "time itself unraveling" suggests that whatever Vecna's doing is breaking down the normal flow of time. We might see multiple timelines colliding, or characters experiencing events out of sequence, or even the group traveling back to key moments to change what happened. The Avengers Endgame comparison keeps coming up in interviews where they use time travel to revisit greatest hits moments. Stranger Things could do something similar, letting us see key events from previous seasons from a new perspective. And there's this whole thing with the November 6th showing up in multiple eras. It's the date Will disappeared in 1983. It's the date on the Oklahoma poster Max finds in Henry's memories from the 1950s. What if November 6th is some kind of temporal anchor point? What if Vecna needs that specific date to complete his plan? Ross Duffer said that pretty early on in Volume 2, we're going to really start understanding everything about the Upside Down. He said it's something that's been planned for 10 years, and now is finally the time to reveal it. That revelation is almost certainly going to involve time. How the Upside Down was created, why it's frozen, how it connects to Dimension X, all of that is coming in Volume 2. The Mind Flayer connection gets answered. This is the big one. The question everyone's been asking since Season 2, what's the real relationship between Vecna and the Mind Flayer? Matt Duffer straight up said this question will be answered in the final episode of Volume 2, not hinted at, not partially explained, fully answered. Here's what we know so far. Henry Creel had his original contact with the Mind Flayer when he was a kid in that Nevada cave. From the first Shadow play and from Volume 1, we know the Mind Flayer flayed young Henry, and that's what gave him his powers. But when Henry got sent to the Upside Down in 1979 after the massacre at Hawkins' lab, he encountered the Mind Flayer again. And Season 4 showed us that Henry shaped the Mind Flayer into that spider form we all know. So which one is actually in control? Did the Mind Flayer create Vecna, or did Vecna create the Mind Flayer? The Duffers have been deliberately vague about this because it's the final reveal, but there are clues. Ross Duffer mentioned that Vecna and Eleven's powers are similar, but they all come from the same place originally. The Mind Flayer seems to be the source. It's this ancient primal force from Dimension X that predates everything else. My guess, based on all the spoilers, the Mind Flayer is the original evil. It's the real villain. Vecna is more like its puppet or its chosen vessel. Henry Creel was turned into Vecna specifically to carry out the Mind Flayer's will in our dimension, and the final episode is going to reveal that everything Vecna's been doing, all his plans, all his manipulation, has actually been the Mind Flayer's endgame all along. This would explain why Vecna's been so obsessed with children. The Mind Flayer needs young, malleable hosts to fully enter our world. Will was the first successful test. Holly might be the final piece, and if that's true, then destroying Vecna won't be enough. The group is going to have to find a way to close off Dimension X entirely entirely to stop the Mind Flayer from just choosing a new host. Dr. K is way more dangerous than we thought. Linda Hamilton's character, Dr. K, is being set up as a major threat in Volume 2, and not in the way you'd expect. She's not like Dr. Bob Aldrin's Brenner at all. Brenner understood what he was dealing with because he created it. Dr. K has no clue. Ross Duffer said what makes Dr. K scary is that she's not trying to solve a mystery. She doesn't understand what really happened with Henry Creel or the Upside Down or any of it. What she sees is Eleven as a weapon, and that's all she wants. She thinks Eleven is responsible for everything happening in Hawkins. She's completely wrong, but she has the full backing of the military, which makes her incredibly dangerous. Think about what this means for Volume 2. Dr. K is going to keep hunting Eleven with everything she's got. She doesn't care about Vecna or the real threat. She's convinced that if she captures or eliminates Eleven, the problem goes away. This creates a massive complication for the group because they're trying to fight Vecna while also avoiding the military. Here's the twist though. Volume 1 revealed that the military has been holding Kaylee, also known as 8, in their Upside Down lab. Eleven and Hopper found her at the end of episode 4, locked behind that vault door everyone thought was hiding Vecna. Kaylee was strapped down, head shaved, being held against her will. Why does the military have Kaylee? The obvious answer is they're trying to use her powers to track down Eleven. Kali can make people see illusions, right? That's an incredibly useful ability for psychological warfare or manipulation. But what if Dr. K has been using Kali for something else? What if she's been trying to create more powered individuals using Kali as a test subject? Volume 2 is going to have to deal with freeing Kaylee and probably convincing her to help fight Vecna. She and Eleven didn't exactly leave things on great terms in Season 2, but if everyone's powers come from the Mind Flayer originally, then Kaylee might be essential to the final battle. Her illusion powers could be the key to tricking Vecna or disrupting his connection to the Hive Mind. And Dr. K's presence means the final battle isn't just going to be the group versus Vecna, it's going to be a three-way fight between the kids, the military, and the forces of the Upside Down. Matt Duffer hinted that the military is going to realize too late how outmatched they are, which suggests we're going to see soldiers getting slaughtered by Demogorgons or Mind Flayer particles, while Dr. K finally understands she's been chasing the wrong target. Major musical moments are coming. The Duffer Brothers are known for their incredible use of music. Season 4 had Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill become a cultural phenomenon, and Eddie's Metallica guitar solo in the Upside Down was legendary. Volume 2 is going to have musical moments that are just as iconic. Matt Duffer specifically said there are some really cool but very different musical moments in Volume 2 and in the finale. The emphasis on different is important. They're not just going to do another instance of music saving someone from Vecna's curse. These are going to be new types of musical moments we haven't seen before. What could that mean? Maybe we'll see the group using music as a weapon against Vecna in a more direct way. Or maybe there's a scene where multiple characters in different locations are all connected through the same song playing. Or maybe, and this would be wild, we'll hear music from the 1950s that connects to Henry Creel's past and gives us emotional context for how he became Vecna. The stage play The First Shadow has music in it, and the Duffers said there's going to be more overlap with the play in Volume 2. What if we see a flashback to young Henry performing in that Oklahoma production with Joyce? What if music was actually part of what made Henry vulnerable to the Mind Flayer in the first place? Music has always been about emotional resonance in Stranger Things. It's about characters connecting to their humanity and their memories. If Vecna's plan involves erasing people's sense of self and turning them into vessels, then music might be the one thing that can break through that conditioning. Max used music to escape Vecna's curse. What if Will, who's connected to the Hive Mind, uses music to break Vecna's control over the other children who've been taken? The finale is specifically mentioned as having significant musical moments. That tells us the final battle is going to have an epic soundtrack. Picture this, Will and Eleven combining their powers while some absolutely perfect song builds to a crescendo, the rest of the group fighting off Demogorgons, and everything culminating in one massive moment of triumph or sacrifice. Scott Clark is back and it matters. This might seem like a small detail, but it's actually important. Scott Clark, the middle school science teacher, was spotted on set for Season 5. He wasn't in Season 4 at all, which made his absence noticeable. His return in Volume 2 suggests the group is going to need his help understanding something scientific about the Upside Down. Throughout the series, Mr. Clark has been the one to explain things like alternate dimensions, sensory deprivation tanks, and electromagnetic fields. He's basically been the group's science consultant. If he's back for the final episodes, it's because there's some crucial piece of scientific knowledge the kids need. What could that be? Maybe he helps them understand how to close the gates permanently. Maybe he figures out the physics behind the Hive Mind connection. Maybe he's the one who explains how the Upside Down's time freeze works and how to reverse it. Whatever it is, his return means Volume 2 is going to answer some of the show's show's biggest scientific questions. And there's something poetic about having Mr. Clark there at the end. He was one of the first adults to take the kids seriously in season 1 when they came to him with wild theories about Will's disappearance. Having him help them finish what they started 8 years ago would bring things full circle. The upside down's true. Nature gets revealed. Ross Duffer promised that pretty early in Volume 2 we're really going to start understanding everything about the upside down. He said this has been planned for 10 years and now is the time to reveal it. That's a massive statement. What don't we know about the upside down? Pretty much everything fundamental about it. Where did it come from? How was it created? Why is it a dark mirror of Hawkins specifically? How does it connect to Dimension X, which is the pure dimension mentioned in the first Shadow play? Why is it frozen on November 6th, 1983? Here's what Volume 2 is probably going to reveal. The upside down isn't a naturally occurring dimension. It was created either by Vecna or by the Mind Flayer or by some combination of both. When Henry Creel was sent there in 1979 by Eleven, it was probably just an empty void. Henry spent years there, alone, in agony, until he found the Mind Flayer. Together they shaped the upside down into what it is now. But why make it look like Hawkins? Why freeze it in 1983? The answer almost certainly has to do with Will. Vecna chose Will as his first vessel. He took Will on November 6th, 1983, and somehow that act of taking Will locked the upside down into that specific moment. It created an anchor point. The gate that Eleven opened in 1983 was the connection point. When Will got pulled through and Vecna infected him with the hive mind particles, it created a permanent link between Hawkins and the upside down. That's why the dimension looks like Hawkins, because it's literally feeding off the real Hawkins, creating a parasitic mirror world. Dimension X is probably where the Mind Flayer originates. It's described as a pure dimension, which suggests it's not a copy of anything. It's its own realm. The upside down is more like a transitional space between Dimension X and the real world. Vecna has been using it as a staging ground to eventually merge all 3 dimensions together, which is what his final plan probably involves. Volume 2 explaining all of this is going to recontextualize everything we've seen in the show. All those moments of the upside down in previous seasons, they're going to hit different once we understand what we were really looking at. The first Shadow play connections between seasons 4 and 5, Netflix released a stage play called Stranger Things: The First Shadow. It tells the story of Henry Creel in the 1950s, showing how he got his powers and his relationships with characters we know. Some of that was integrated into Volume 1, but the Duffers confirmed there's way more coming in Volume 2. Matt Duffer said that when they were working on the play, they had Henry's backstory completely worked out, but they had to find a balance between what to put in the play and what to save for the show. The director and producer kept pushing for more details, and the Duffers kept pushing back, saying they needed a way to reveal certain things in the show itself. And then Matt said something crucial. You'll see, especially as you reach the final episode, there's more overlap with the play. The final episode is going to pull directly from the first Shadow in a major way. Whatever happened to Henry in that Nevada cave, whatever the full extent of his relationship with Joyce was, whatever triggered his transformation into Vecna, it's all coming in the finale. For people who saw the play, Volume 2 is going to reward them with callbacks and deeper understanding. For people who didn't see it, the Duffers confirmed you don't need to have watched the play to understand what's happening. Everything will be explained in the show itself, but here's why this matters. The first Shadow revealed things about Henry that made him more sympathetic. It showed him as a confused kid who didn't ask for powers, who was scared of what he could do, who just wanted to be normal. The play humanized him in a way the show hasn't fully done yet. If Volume 2 is pulling from that material, we might get scenes that make us understand Vecna as a tragic figure, not just a monster. That doesn't mean he'll be redeemed, but understanding him might be necessary to defeating him. If Will, Max, and Holly are seeing Henry's memories, they're seeing him before he became the villain. They're seeing the moment where he could have made different choices, and that understanding might give them the key to breaking his hold on the hive mind. The group gets split up in the upside down. Here's a tactical spoiler about Volume 2's structure. Based on set photos and interviews, we know that Nancy, Jonathan, Dustin, and Steve are going to be trapped in the upside down for a significant portion of Volume 2. At the end of Volume 1, we saw them follow a Demogorgon into a portal on the side of a grain silo. They went through, probably thinking they could track it back to Vecna, but now they're stuck there, separated from the rest of the group during the most critical phase of the battle. This creates a really interesting dynamic. Eleven, Hopper, Will, and the others are going to be in the real world, trying to stop Vecna and protect the kids he's targeting. Meanwhile, Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Dustin are going to be navigating the upside down, trying to find their way back while also gathering intel on Vecna's operation from the inside. This is classic Duffer Brothers structure. They love splitting the party up so that multiple storylines can run parallel, each one discovering different different pieces of the puzzle that eventually connect in the finale. The Russia storyline in Season 4 did this, the California group in Season 4 did this, and now we've got 3 separate storylines in Volume 2, the Real World group, the Trapped Upside Down group, and the Mindspace group with Max and Holly. What makes this particularly tense is that the group in the Upside Down can't communicate with anyone else. No walkie-talkies work across dimensions, they're completely isolated. And we know from Volume 1 that time moves differently in the Upside Down. What feels like hours there might be days in the real world, or vice versa. Steve and Nancy's relationship is probably going to come to a head during this section. They've been dancing around each other for seasons now, with Jonathan thrown into the mix. Being trapped in a life or death situation in the Upside Down is going to force them to finally deal with their feelings. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a major romantic moment between them, possibly right before some horrible monster shows up. And Dustin's role is crucial here. He's the most scientifically minded of the younger kids after Lucas. He's going to be the one figuring out how the Upside Down works, how to navigate it, how to find a way back. His friendship with Steve has been one of the show's best relationships, and Volume 2 is going to test that bond in a serious way. Eddie Munson's legacy. Eddie Munson's death in Season 4 was heartbreaking. The dude sacrificed himself to give the group time, and he died believing everyone in Hawkins thought he was a murderer. But Volume 2 is going to show that his legacy lives on. We saw Dustin wearing a Hellfire Club shirt in Volume 1. That's not just a costume choice. That's Dustin making sure Eddie's name continues. The Hellfire Club was Eddie's thing. He poured his heart into Dungeons & Dragons and creating a space where outcasts could belong. Dustin taking that on means he's not letting Eddie be forgotten. There's been some speculation that Eddie might return as part of Vecna's hive since his body was left in the Upside Down. The Duffers confirm that's not happening. Eddie is dead and staying dead, but his presence is still going to be felt in Volume 2 through the other characters. Steve's arc might involve him feeling guilty about Eddie's death. Nancy might reference him when thinking about how many people have been lost. And Dustin, who is closest to Eddie, is probably going to have at least one scene where he talks about him or where his sacrifice becomes the motivation for not giving up. The Hellfire Club shirt is a promise. Dustin's promising that when this is all over, if they survive, he's going to make sure everyone knows Eddie was a hero. The Military Access Control Zone. The MACZ, which is what the military calls their controlled zone in Hawkins, is going to be a major setting for Volume 2. In Volume 1, we saw them setting up a massive operation inside the Upside Down, trying to contain it from spreading further into town. But here's the thing, the military has no idea what they're really dealing with. They think this is some kind of environmental disaster or nuclear fallout. Dr. K thinks it's all 11's fault. None of them understand that there's an ancient evil entity actively trying to break through into our world. That ignorance is going to cost them in Volume 2. We've already seen Demogorgons attacking the MACZ. We've seen soldiers getting killed. But based on what the Duffers have said, the military is going to face something way worse than a few monster attacks. They're going to realize too late that they built their base in the worst possible location, right on top of Vecna's main access point. The climactic battle is probably going to involve the MACZ getting completely overrun. The military's weapons won't work against Mind Flayer particles or Vecna's psychic attacks. All their tanks and guns and tactics are going to be useless, and the kids are going to have to save them even while the military is still trying to capture 11. This is going to force Dr. K to make a choice. Does she keep pursuing 11 even when it's obvious she's needed to fight the real threat? Or does she admit she was wrong and work with the kids? My guess is she doesn't survive Volume 2. Someone with that much pride and that many resources at their disposal usually ends up becoming a cautionary tale about ignoring the truth. The final battle is absolutely massive. Okay, so the finale is titled, well actually we don't know the title yet, but we know it's going to be 2 hours and 5 minutes long. That's movie length. And it's going to be shown in 500 select theaters across the US and Canada, which tells you the Duffers consider it a theatrical event. 2 hours for a single episode is insane. For context, the longest episode ever in the series before this was Season 4's finale at about an hour and a half. This finale is 35 minutes longer than that. It's longer than most Marvel movies. The Duffers aren't messing around. What can possibly fill 2 hours? The final battle, obviously, but also resolutions for every character arc, explanations for all the mysteries, and probably some massive emotional moments that are going to wreck us. Based on everything we know, here's what the finale probably includes. Will using his full powers for the first time, probably in coordination with 11. The two of them working together to fight Vecna makes perfect sense. They're both connected to him in different ways. 11 defeated him once by sending him to the Upside Down. Will was his first vessel. Together, they might be the only ones who can actually destroy him. Max and Holly escaping Vecna's mind space with crucial information about his weakness. Whatever they discover in his memories is going to be the key to winning. Maybe it's something about the cave from the 1950s. Maybe it's about his fear. Maybe it's about the moment he made a deal with the Mind Flayer and how that deal can be broken. The military finally understanding what's really happening and either helping or getting wiped out. Dr. K is probably going to die. A lot of soldiers are probably going to die. But maybe a few survivors will spread the word about what really happened, setting up a potential spin-off about how the government has to deal with the Upside Down existing. The Mind Flayer reveal? Whatever the true relationship is between Vecna and the Mind Flayer gets exposed, and it changes everything about how they have to approach the fight. Someone major is probably going to die. This is the series finale. The Duffers have said this is the end. And while I don't think they'll kill off the core kids, someone important isn't making it out. My money's on either Steve or Hopper having a heroic sacrifice moment. Steve's had enough close calls throughout the series that it feels like it's building to something, and Hopper's already died once, so doing it again but for real would be devastating. The Upside Down either gets sealed off permanently or gets completely destroyed. They can't just leave it sitting there for a sequel. The finale has to provide closure on whether that dimension continues to exist and pose a threat, or if they find a way to eliminate it entirely, and somehow, someway, the ending has to honor where this all started. With Will Byers disappearing and a group of kids deciding they weren't going to give up until they found him, the finale is going to bring that story full circle. Why Volume 2 changes everything. Look, Volume 1 was incredible, but it was basically setting the board. It established where everyone is, what the stakes are, and what new powers are in play. Volume 2 is where all of that pays off. We're going to get answers to questions we've been asking for almost a decade. How did the Upside Down form? What's the Mind Flayer's true role? Why was Will taken first? What happened to Henry Creel to turn him into Vecna? How can Eleven and Will's combined powers defeat something as ancient and powerful as the Mind Flayer? And beyond the plot answers, we're going to get emotional closure for characters we've spent 8 years with. Mike and Will's relationship, which has been strained by unspoken feelings and changing dynamics. Nancy choosing between Steve and Jonathan, or maybe choosing neither. Dustin finding a way to honor Eddie's memory. Lucas making sure Max knows she's loved even if she's trapped in a coma. Eleven finally understanding that she's not just a weapon or an experiment, she's a person who chose her own family. The Duffers have been planning this ending since season 1. They've known where it was going all along. Matt and Ross Duffer have said that everything has been building to this finale, that it's something they've had in their heads for a decade, and that Netflix executives literally cried when they pitched season 5's ending. That tells you everything you need to know about Volume 2. It's going to be emotional, it's going to be epic, and it's going to deliver on the promise this show made back in 2016, that a group of kids fighting monsters in the 80s could become one of the most important stories in modern television. December 25th can't come fast enough, and now you know every single spoiler that's already out there. When you watch Volume 2, you're going to see all these pieces click into place. Will's powers, Max and Holly's mission in Vecna's mind, the Mind Flayer reveal, time unraveling, the musical moment, the connections to the first shadow. All of it is going to come together in a finale that the Duffers have been working towards since they first imagined a kid on a bike being chased by something in the dark. Make sure you're caught up on Volume 1 before you dive into Volume 2, because these final 4 episodes aren't going to waste any time holding your hand. They're going to hit the ground running and not stop until the very end. And trust me, with everything I just told you, you're going to want to know what's coming so you can catch every single detail they're packing into these episodes.